opening day did not go off for the Mets. So the Nationals have 4 players who have tested positive for COVID already, and I think they have maybe 6 more in quarantine for contact tracing. So neither team is going to play this weekend, and the Mets will have to wait until Monday to begin their season. And the Nationals will too on Monday. They'll be playing mostly kind of with a practice squad, really, of extra players to go against the Braves on Monday. So Andrew, I think that this has just showed us that the COVID drama has already begun. The season hasn't even started yet, and there's already COVID cancellations. So how much do you really think that this sets back the Mets? I mean, like you said, they were coming in on such a high, and then they kind of halted, and nothing has happened now, and they're still kind of waiting for that moment where they can come through.
I think more obviously for the Nationals, it's going to hurt them, and because the Mets are obviously they don't have the positive cases. It's just I think it's more for the fans, because it was such a they were such a high Wednesday night, so going into Thursday would have been hopefully DeGrom would have pitched well, and it's kind of all that stuff. But for me, I'm not that worried about it. At the end of the day, they're professionals. They get an extra few days off. Maybe that helps as well. But then down the line, you have to make up these 7, probably be double headers, 7 innings, all that stuff that the MLB's put in place. That may be a little worried, but that's down the line. So I'm not going to worry about that now. And then, get to start the season on Monday, which, it's a little, for me, it's you would like to have it on Thursday, like the rest of the league, and have DeGrom pitch. And it would have been against Scherzer, which was just such a great matchup between those two guys. Really one of the, to talk about the best pitchers of this generation, you have the best 2 or one of the best 2s right there. And, that kind of stinks. But at the end of the day, start Monday, season gets underway. I cannot wait, but it's a little disappointing. I can't lie.
I'm going to have to take things a step further and say, not only is this, first of all, this is very disappointing. And I'm just going to come out here and say that the Major League Baseball is screwing over my New York Mets. I am very upset about this decision for a few reasons. Number one, look, the Miami Marlins played about with, 2 different teams worth of players last year during COVID. They had about 1 billion positives. They, kept changing in and out of their roster. And I know they shut down a little bit in the beginning, but, the Marlins proved that this whole alternate site taxi squad thing can work for you. So look, I understand. I just want to preface this by saying, COVID is obviously a very serious issue. These players are not all vaccinated, and I get this. We got to take this seriously, which I totally appreciate. But my thing is, that we have these taxi squads and alternate sites for a reason. And from what it seems to me, now, who knows, maybe today or we're going to find out there's even more positives and this thing is really spreading. But from what we know, it's only 4 positive players and it's 9 or 10 people in quarantine. So let's just go off the preface by saying that they have it contained to these 4 players. I don't see with these protocols in place, with these quarantine in place, why you can't just call up these 9 guys. I understand that, hey, it's not necessarily fair, whatever. But, and I know it's a different sport. The Denver Broncos were forced to play a football game with no quarterback. Like I said, with the Marlins, they had 30 different guys coming up. We got to adapt. And I don't think it's fair to the Mets, who've done nothing wrong. They've done everything the right way. They've been safe with COVID, to have them kind of screwed over in the fact that they can't play an opponent. And what makes this worse, in my opinion, is like Kayla mentioned, now you're going to have the Nationals going with this, mishmashed roster of guys who are AAA players and, guys who didn't make the team go play the Braves. So now the Braves are going to get 3 easy games. In the Mets, they're going to have to start off in Philly. And it seems like a double standard to me that I know it's a few days difference, but I don't like what's going on here. I don't think it's fair to the Mets. And I understand it's only 3 games and they'll make these up and whatever. But, 3 games in a division like the NL East, when you got, the Mets, the Braves, the Nationals, even the Phillies, this is going to be a very tight division. And those 3 games, and look, the Mets could very easily win those 3 games or whatever, but it makes a difference. And, when you play those games very early on in the season when you're fresh versus when you're going to have to play a doubleheader in late July or something, it seems small, insignificant right now. But the thing is, it's going to add up over time. And I just don't feel the way that the league has operated in the past and are going to operate the rest of this week, that it was necessarily fair for the Mets to have these games canceled. And also selfishly, as a baseball fan and as a Mets fan, I wanted to see them play as soon as possible. So that was disappointing.
No, I think that those are really good points. They are, while these 3 games, they do feel kind of insignificant, but like you said, it's fresh. And instead now you have to make them up later in the season where you're going to have already played so many, probably. It'll probably be some kind of double header type thing. And I think that is definitely going to affect your results of it. But I don't know. I feel like they were right to cancel it, even though it was disappointing and it was frustrating. But they were still kind of finding positive cases like on Thursday, weren't they? I thought that they were still kind of conducting a search. So I don't think that they could have sent out a mishmash roster or whatever, because they weren't really sure who had it and who didn't yet. And they were still waiting on test results. So I think that while it sucks, anything in terms of safety, it was probably better for them to cancel it. But yeah, you're right. Now they have to go play the Braves get to play a mismatched team, and the Mets have to go play a healthy Phillies team. So it definitely, I think, is going to negatively affect the Mets, like in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I think it's more in the MLB, like, because obviously they canceled them because they didn't know like who tested, like the contact tracing, obviously maybe still a little shoddy, which to me it boggles my mind. You went through a whole season of this and this is still an issue, which I mean, just tells you, I guess, how the MLB operates, which I mean, again, I feel like is something that, I mean, to me, it just doesn't make much sense, because you see like the NFL, like even if there was a positive test like the night before or like 2 days before a game, they would be able to, basically get it all sorted out and play the game and no worries. I mean, the one game I guess would be the Broncos game, but really besides that, it was pretty good even when you had those positives on Friday. I mean, they fielded out throughout the season, and it felt like the MLB was doing the same. And now like they just start again like this, they can't contact trace in a day or something. And obviously it took them the whole weekend, because now they're not going to play the whole weekend. So they couldn't even play 2 on Saturday or on, one on Sunday or whatever it ended up being. Just, it shows that whatever process is in place, it's not working. And this is now the second year. That's frustrating, and it's frustrating for the Mets. And, I just feel like also the MLB doesn't want that situation. I think it happened with the Marlins where they had like 3 or 4 guys on their roster. They just took them out and they still played the game. And then it spread even more through that game. And then like a lot of other guys had it. So maybe they're just trying to err on the side of caution as well, not have a situation like that happen again. But it's been over, a year. This is now your second season, with this, in the COVID new world. And, still not having a full grasp on it is definitely a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest problem is, look, from a safety standpoint, of course, this was the right thing to do. If your main goal is to keep players safe, I 100% understand why you want to make this move. My biggest problem is that we have got the Major League Baseball was the first professional sports league in the United States to deal with COVID. They went through an entire season before NFL, NBA, NHL. I mean, obviously they all had their bubble situation and stuff, but they were really the first one to say, like, we're going to try to play a regular season cross country and see what happens. So if there was any league that should have been prepared for a situation like this, it was Major League Baseball. And, not to like bash them a little excessively here, but they were kind of bragging a little bit going into the season, like, oh, hey, look, we're having all these tests and no one's positive. Well, you know what? You just had to cancel your entire first series because now people have COVID. So don't come out and say how great you're doing and have this happen. It's Major League Baseball is so poorly run in a variety of ways, but we don't have enough time to get into all of that. But the whole COVID thing, it's so poorly planned out. And I understand for the safety point of view, but the decision is not consistent with the standards and the protocols they have in place. They have these taxi squads and these, alternate sites for a reason. And I appreciate and totally agree that it was the safest thing to do. My thing was, it wasn't consistent with what the standards that MLB has laid out and what they've already done in the past. And again, I understand it's a completely different league, but the NFL, I remember specifically, you had situations where it was like a Saturday night and someone like on an NFL team would test positive for COVID, and like they would still play the game the next day because they tested everyone and whatever. And I understand the probably wasn't the safest thing to do. But if you think about the fact that in NFL football, you have a 53-man roster, not like 25-man or 20-man, whatever roster, and you're also playing a contact sport. I mean, baseball, honestly speaking, aside from like golf, is probably like the lowest risk transmission sport because there's no physical contact aside from the catcher and the batter. You're not really standing that super close to each other. So, I understand the decision from a safety point of view. My biggest problem is that it wasn't consistent with what has already been done in the past. And with a league that had experienced COVID for, I understand it was 60 games, but for a full season already, for them to have to cancel an opening week series already is it's not a good sign, in my opinion.